That was just the most perfunctory. All right, starting recording.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here too. I was very surprised when we did the rewatch how good it felt for you and I to be on stage again having the conversation with the audience. It's weird, man.
Yeah, I had so much fun. That was probably the most fun I've had doing one of those.
Yeah.
It felt good.
The hangout discussion that we had for Shadow was one of the most weirdly spirited.
Yeah,
it was a really good conversation, and it's always interesting to me the episodes that lend themselves, like, when we talk about Hush, it's really good. I just think it's really good, and I really like this one, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And it's no one's fault. It's like the format that I kind of fell into with the patron hangouts, where it's like, okay, 10 minutes with you, 10 minutes with you, 10 minutes with you. But, after the first person speaks on an episode like that, you kind of run into a problem. But with the ones, it's surprising. The other one that I really remember is Eternity. The Angel episode where he gets magically... what is it? She gets drugged, and Angelus comes back. The drug-induced Angelus return.
Yeah. I have a lot of things to say about that.
Yeah, and a couple of the gentlemen that are regulars on there. I don't want to out them specifically. She did some personal sharing about things that they went through, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll take the opportunity to, because I feel like as an MC. There's sort of a responsibility to make everyone feel comfortable, to monitor chat, which mercifully I have you and Sarah, but also to make everyone feel listened to, and to sort of like play off of everything everyone says, and to monitor the time, and to speak to chat. So there's kind of a whole lot. And after those two gentlemen very graciously shared about personal experiences they had that they related to the episode, I was like, okay. And I shared a story about something that I had gone through related to addiction and vice. And it turned into this like emotional, intimate gathering that we all had in front of the 80 people on YouTube that were listening. It was it was so strange, but that experience to me might be where, because we've been doing the hangouts now for years.
Yeah, actually, while we were streaming, I saw a suggested video of a hangout from like 2 years ago, and I'm like, wait, we've been doing this for multiple years? What? Yeah. And like, I never intended it to be as regular a group as it has been, and I love it when new people show up. But it's become quite an integral part of the channel now, I think. It's
an interesting thing, and those videos now break into the thousands of views, which is crazy,
But yeah, it's funny though, because the Shadow conversation was spirited, but it had very little to do with the episode itself.
Well, yeah.
Because it's Shadow.
Shadow and Listening to Fear and Into the Woods are all... It's that 3-part trilogy that isn't really a trilogy, but I've deemed it the Dreary Trilogy for the channel.
Right, yeah.
And, So how have you been, man? By the way, welcome everyone to the podcast of the nerds. I'm Ian,
and my name is Jack. How have I been, Ian? Oh boy, how have I been?
We'll get into that. Jack, what are we doing today?
Well, today we thought, because it's been a while, we're just gonna ease back into it, because I think the last time we had quite a long break, we tried to do something a little more
ambitious.
Ambitious, and I think we both weren't entirely happy with what came of it.
You're talking about when we came back from break, we went kind of completely off the cuff and tried to do a little too much.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking for myself, I wasn't entirely happy with it. Yeah.
Well, we have very different bars for the podcast.
I mean, look, no. I was glad that we got something done, and it wasn't terrible. But I just felt like you and I, we have a standard that obviously just exists in my head.
Yeah, well,
that we didn't quite meet.
No, yeah, we're all here for different reasons. You're here for your reason. I'm here for my reason. They are here for their reason. It just happens that some of them. There's a Venn diagram of all of us for the people who choose to listen to this, and for you and I who choose to show up for it. And just that was a weird case where I was fine with the thing that we put out, but sometimes they don't overlap.
You still conceded that it wasn't our best.
It was not our most technically proficient.
Yeah. My biggest issue with it was that it just felt very sloppy, and it kind of was because we were out of practice. But
yeah. Well, when it comes to the live stuff, I'm very familiar with sloppy. Sloppy. Sloppy is my sweet spot, buddy. Like, I live in sloppy.
My sweet spot. Passion of the Nerd 2021.
I wish that, I have very few regrets for my sobriety, but one of them is that you and I will never do a bad decision stream together. Right. Where we'll never be in the same room doing shots and following drinking rules, but all of those... we will stream together. Well, whenever we end up in the same space, we should do a live podcast together.
Multiple,
yeah. But the bad decision streams, like, they were very fun. The thing about like being an alcoholic, like I am, is I really enjoy drinking. It's not it's. I'm gaining other accesses to it, but it's definitely an access to joy for me, and to turn the volume down.
And I get that. Because, I don't drink... I don't not drink, but I just don't drink often. I will not sit alone and get drunk because that just seems incredibly boring to me.
I pretty much only enjoy sitting alone and getting drunk. But the bad decision streams were a rare exception. But, the point is... Talking about sloppy.
Yeah.
Those were a mess.
But I still enjoy like going out and not so much going out now, but if I'm with a group of people, like if I'm hanging out with someone and they pull out a bottle of Jack, I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I'm down. Let's do it.
That has not happened to me. That's been the interesting thing about getting sober during a quarantine and a pandemic. I suppose I did live with my friend Nigel and Rachel, and they drink. They are parents and adults, and they, at the end of the day, say, "Come on," and they go and they have a shot together, and then make a drink, and then they stop, and they go to bed. And that's the part where I am not, because they, I don't know because, but they have responsibilities and they have, they're not doing it to, but they also, because they have that off switch, do have times where they have 7 or 8 shots or whatever.
And then they're not drinking to the point where they get absolutely annihilated, right?
Yeah. And I normally didn't either. That really wasn't the problem. It was the regularity of...
Yeah.
Every couple of days. But
and hey, on the bright side, you don't have to message me in the morning and say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." You know what?
Well, staying up till 5 a.m.
was never...
Staying up till 5 a.m. drinking on the regular basis, it's like Australian time. I was living on Australian time.
Pretty much.
When that was the case. But
it was never bad for me though. Like talking to drunk Ian, you were never like belligerent or annoying or anything.
I'm generally a sweet drunk.
A couple of times you literally like fell asleep while we were talking, and I'd be like, Okay, I'm just gonna hang up now because this is weird. I don't want to sit here and watch you sleep.
Yeah, but the only thing about, like, yes, it's been a year. It was actually April. I thought it was March, but it was April. Was the 1 year anniversary of my sobriety.
Congrats, man.
But that situation that you just mentioned, that I feel like it's a little untested. Yes, I'm happy about it, and I don't know, like, my friends and loved ones.
You've been able to stay away from it, is what you're saying. Like you haven't been tempted. You haven't had somebody.
With the pandemic, there's a natural stopgap involved where I'm not getting invited to parties where people are drinking, or to bars or whatever it is, and like.
Right.
That is going to change. We're slowly going to transition back into.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I have dreams about a relapse. It's very strange. Like, it's a new form of stress dream. You know, how I have dreams where I show up to the theater on the last day, and it's performance day, and I was supposed to learn my lines, and I never showed up to dress rehearsal, and I never got off book, and so now I'm gonna have to be on stage with the script. Like, it's it's like that showing up for test day nightmares kind of thing. And for me now, there's a new one where I am just casually out with friends and have a drink and realize that I just lost a year of sobriety. And I, in the dream, feel such sadness that a year just went away like nothing.
Yeah. I feel very similar about cigarettes. I also haven't been in a position where someone's like offered me a cigarette. I know I'd say no now because it's been over 2 years now, man. And like, even though I still get the occasional like craving of, hey, you know what, a cigarette would be really nice right about now. I know that one drag it's not gonna be a fun time. I'll cough, I'll get sick, I'll get dizzy. It's gonna be awful. But I also still have dreams where I smoke a cigarette and I'm really down on myself because I'm like 2 years and it's gone. When I quit, I downloaded this Quit app. It was something that was created by the Australian government, I think, and it had this timer. Like, you put in the exact time that you quit smoking, and you see the timer go up like by the second. And I loved watching that timer get higher and higher and higher. And I didn't want to see that timer go back to zero. Yeah.
I mean, you know, there are people in my family who have dealt with alcoholism, and so I had different storms at different points in my life where it got really bad, and then I sort of reined it back in, then it got bad again, and I reined it back in. And during one or two of those, I went to an AA meeting, and I kind of made a classic mistake, which is, you know, I heard other people's stories from people who had ruined their lives with alcohol, and I hadn't done that yet.
Right.
I never quite did it. I somehow prevented total bottoming out, I suppose. But it made me feel like I didn't belong there. Oh, I'm not sick enough. I don't even know if sick is the proper term, or my problem is not bad enough, so I don't belong here. I'm pulling light and support that should be for other people who are much worse off than I am. And so
that's such an Ian thing. My God.
And so
I'm almost annoyed.
I felt like I just didn't have, like, I never found, I never really found the version of my problem that made me feel, I don't know, seen.
Yeah.
So I just, eventually though, it started to interfere with, it did the thing. It started to interfere with relationships of people that I cared about desperately, and I didn't want to screw up. And I went, okay, I'm done. And just hit the off switch, and it's been off for a year now. But like, I just worry about which is the way I do a lot of things, which is just, okay. And then I wouldn't even say it was super difficult, because that word doesn't even really apply. It just kind of is this journey of, oh, there's my hardcore, there's my desire. Oh, wow. When I quit bread, I did a hardcore version of Atkins in the early 2000s called the Good Heart Diet, the cabbage soup diet. You eat only cabbage soup all the time, and you can eat as much cabbage soup as you want. And then every day you eat a different item, like tomato slices with salt. And then and the last day is a potato. And it's basically the only carbohydrates that you have on the diet.
Yeah.
And by the time, after 7 days of eating this other stuff, but when you have that potato, it is the most glorious, incredible thing. You swear to yourself you're going to have a baked potato with every meal you ever have for the rest of your life when you go off this diet. I remember going to the grocery store and standing in the bread aisle, and I had a physical reaction to the smell of the bread that wasn't quite erotic,
but close.
But goddamn close. And I've had that reaction with alcohol now, where I bought a friend a bottle of booze as a thank you, and it was a nice bottle of booze. And he's, I said, well, you and she should have a shot. And he's like, are you sure? And I said, sure. And he did. And I said, well, let me smell it, which is stupid, but I did it, because I wanted to understand the boundaries of what this problem is going to be. And I felt that same standing in the bread aisle experience where my body was just like, that smells like happiness. Like a hardcore craving and reaction. I haven't done that again. But I don't know, man. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Quitting cigarettes for me was, I will say, it was pretty difficult. I used patches for a week, and patches, there's like this 3-month program where you just slowly wean off the thing. But after a week, once I broke the whole psychological hand to mouth,
the psychological part's the tough part.
I was just like, I just want to be done with it. I don't want to, and like patches are pretty expensive. I just thought, I just want to be done with it. So I went cold turkey from there, and look, it sucked for like, first 2 weeks were pretty tough. First month kind of sucked, but after a month, it gets easier and easier, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm just surprised I didn't relapse once, not one single time. I just stopped, and that was it. I'm really surprised and proud of myself. To be honest,
that's great, man.
Of all the vices I've had, I honestly thought cigarettes would be the one that was going to kill me. I never thought I'd be able to kick those. Now I'm just I drink coffee. That's it. and maybe my action figure collecting is a bit of an addiction now.
Electronics
but it's healthier.
Is definitely my vice of choice now. But I mean, buying things.
I'm a tech nerd too, so I feel you. I just don't have the money.
Buying things to make yourself happy is definitely a capitalist kind of approach.
I think it's not as deadly as smoking or drinking.
Oh, no.
I don't think.
Not in the short term.
And at least you've got something to show for it too. Like, I have a pretty cool collection of collectibles now, and some may see it as a waste of money, but I see it as my hobby, or one of my hobbies.
But yeah, I mean,
I like action figures, and
outside
computers
opinions
is another hobby.
Outside opinions about that sort of thing, or who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
but that was our roundabout way of saying that we're gonna take it a little easy today. We're gonna be yeah. That's
oopsie doopsie.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're just coughing, man. It was good. It just off the cuff, just riffing. Yeah, so we're going to be watching and reacting to the Nevers, which I know nothing about.
Yeah, so agenda of the day is we are going to publish a video separately to this that'll be linked in the show notes, where we record our entire reaction to the Nevers. If you have not watched the pilot episode and you want someone to watch it with you,
It'll be like a kind of live reaction, even though it won't be entirely live.
You can watch it with the two of us, and then so there will be a break in this podcast, and then we'll come back and have our conversation about. I mean, it'll obviously be initial reaction to the episode and all of that, and that'll probably be it for today. Other than the next chapter in the fanfic reading.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know we originally a couple of weeks ago, well, it's been more than a couple of weeks now, threw out the idea of New Year's resolutions. I think we were talking about starting them in May, given we're already in May, and Jack and I have been dealing with various and sundry details in our own lives that have prevented us from recording regularly. To me, kind of the point of the collaborative New Year's resolutions is the accountability buddy, is the check-in, is the how are these going, how's this going, how's the writing going, how's the exercise going, whatever. And until we get back on kind of a regular recording track, it just seems sort of pointless to me to just throw out resolutions from no place, because this will sustain the resolutions, but that's only if this is clicking and working.
Yeah, we definitely still want to do it. We've both figured out what our resolutions will be. We just want to be back properly and more regularly before we actually commit to that being, because we don't want to put it out there and then disappear for another month. We are going to endeavor from here on in to be here once a week doing this. But
well, I mean, that's always our intent, but
always.
Life intervenes from time to time.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way to suck.
Yes,
it's a challenge.
True. But Ian, what have you been up to, sir?
Well, I wanted to follow up. I mean, I don't mean to steep our conversation in vice or challenges, but it was several episodes ago we did the Full Metal Con, I think was the name of the episode, where I talked about some trauma I had gone through as a teenager, and that I was in the midst of immersion therapy with the woman I've been seeing as my therapist for about 5 years now. And we did it. It was 5 consecutive weeks, and I just thought it was kind of an interesting and unusual experience that warranted a follow-up. I know that was kind of a dramatic... I mean, it's tough stuff, right? We're talking about trauma and damage and pain and whatever. And so rather than just not talking about it, we did it. So the way it worked was it was 5 consecutive weeks where at the beginning of every session, we pop on a Zoom call. Ordinarily it would be in person, and she says, okay, I want you to just start writing about what happened in as much detail as you possibly can. Sights, smells, what you were feeling, what you were thinking. And every session you would focus on something slightly different from the last, right? And it's a weird, completely counterintuitive kind of thing, right?
Because we tend to want to avoid things that hurt us or cause us distress.
Naturally, and we seek to do that for the people we love and care about in our lives, right?
Yeah.
To save each other from harm and from pain and whatever. And so to consciously and rationally pursue it just to me was so, I mean, I understand intellectually the purpose of it, but it's just a very unusual, the worst experience that you can think of in your life. Let's spend 5 weeks writing in detail about that experience and what it was like, right? Mm-hmm. And I would definitely find that the day of the session, I would be dreading it so badly that I couldn't focus on anything. Yeah. My anxiety would just spiral up, and I would. We always meet in the afternoon, and I would think I was fine. Oh, I'm fine. What do you mean? Everything's okay. I'm fine. But just be completely unable to apply myself to anything, to focus. And then as I get closer and closer to the thing itself, I would start to experience a little bit of panic. And then, she'd always ask me, the funny thing, she wouldn't always, but she asked me at the beginning of one session, like, "Oh, you ready to go?" No, but let's go, which is kind of the operating principle of the podcast and just pursuing meaningful experiences, right? And the interesting thing was I had never written about, I talked a little bit about what I had gleaned from that first session, but I had never written about that entire experience end to end, from meeting this person to the build-up to the circumstances that brought me to that situation, to the experience itself, to the days after, and then to sort of in seeing and understanding, like the way that I think of it is that we are constantly making meaning about our world. We're constantly learning things. We're constantly interpreting things. We're categorizing things. We're telling ourselves things about ourselves. We're learning things about other people all the time, every single minute, right? But trauma sets you on fire, and that is not a good time to be making interpretations about the way the world works. Right?
Yeah.
But you can't really help that, right? Because that's being human. And seeking to understand and compartmentalize the horror of whatever you've been through tends to lead to erroneous conclusions about, in one way or another, about something. And it did for me. Like masculinity and male sexuality and family specifically. There was the way it was handled in my family and so forth, like trust and safety and the idea of home and the idea of my own worth and my own value. All of those got bundled up into that experience because you're always seeking to define yourself, right?
Okay.
Maybe less so as you age. I don't know. But at that particular point in my life, it was just rife with, who am I?
Like you were 16, right?
16.
So yeah, that's a very formative age, you know. You're figuring out who you are.
And I may eventually write something about it for the channel. But I'd never written about the experience end to end and there were things that I had never admitted to myself about what had happened and things that I had never forgiven myself for and all of that. And it was interesting. Every session it was never easy, but it got less terrifying, which is the whole point of the experience. It is the whole point of that kind of immersion therapy, is to remove the teeth from the experience, so that by the end it was almost boring. It was almost like, this thing happened and Yeah,
and that's what it's supposed to
and
do.
that
I think
is so much lighter. That is so. I mean, it's never. I said almost. It's not that it is, but
no, of
like the
course not.
weight. But what that implies to me is that the weight of it, which I had never grappled with because I thought I had, but as often as those things sort of pop up and occur in your life, it's like yeah. Like who wants that in their present, in their reality, right? But sort of rejecting it or pushing it aside or whatever, but really sort of just being with it and not interpreting it or whatever, but just sort of being with the experience of it took a lot of the weight of it out to it just sort of being a thing. Like, sure, it's a horror, and it's something I would never, and it's never okay, and it's not something that I would wish on anyone, but acknowledging it no longer inspires the fear and discomfort and disgust or shame or whatever that it did before. All of that is dramatically reduced.
That's good. That means the therapy worked. It did when it was supposed to do.
All it does is take some of the remove the teeth. It's still this thing, and all of those
it's still awful
interpretations for the way relationships are supposed to work, or the way my value as an individual and my currency as a human being and whatever. All of those things still need to be grappled with. It doesn't cure any of those, but it removes this terror, or rather, it helped. It aided in kind of turning the volume down on this terror. So I thought it was interesting. Because it is so counterintuitive and such a strange thing to do as an individual. To say like, oh, that awful thing, let's talk only about that for 5 weeks. That I wanted to follow up and just share with everyone. Kind of the results of the experience.
Good stuff, man. I'm glad.
What about you? What have you been up to this week or this month? I mean, I know, but you tell them.
I've been really unwell, my friends. And weirdly, it all kind of started with a toothache, even though it's not related. But that's where my misery kind of started, and then it just sort of escalated from there. But yeah, I guess a couple of weeks ago, and now I developed a toothache. It's a tooth that I've had trouble with for a while, and I've known for a while that I needed to go and get it fixed. But us human beings, we're fickle in that we don't really go and get something sorted out until it becomes a real problem.
It's really weird. Teeth specifically seem to draw that out. Like there are people who show up pretty well for their appointments, or
I'm one of them.
for their doctor's appointments or whatever. But teeth specific, I'm the same way. It's a source of discomfort and
But also, dentistry in this country is quite a mess in that, like, we do have universal healthcare, but it doesn't cover dental at all.
It's so weird.
And it is very odd. And there's been a push to try and get it covered. So there are, like, community dentists and stuff that you can go and see, but they're, like, years-long waiting lists and stuff. And it's just a messy, long process. So,
although you told me about how much it cost, so it's subsidized. It has to be government subsidized at that price.
Well, okay, so let me get into that. So, because I'm a poor person, I went to a dental hospital that serves as a teaching facility for the university. So, everybody who works on UM was a student, and I think that's partially why it's a lot cheaper. Like, it's basically like $30 a session, basically, as opposed to like thousands.
I've heard of that with haircuts. My mom used to take us to a hair care school, and the students needed people to cut, so you could get a haircut for $4 or whatever it was. So yeah, that's interesting.
So I went in, and so the first person I saw, I think, was a proper legit dentist, because they had to sort of like triage me and figure out what was wrong and whatnot. But Sid, the thing is too, the dental hospital will only take you in under certain circumstances. They don't do like checkups. They only like do basically like emergency stuff. Like you have to be in. Yeah, and just like if you've got like swelling pain, and so like my symptoms were really bad because I dealt with it for like a couple of days, to the point where I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Like I was in a very bad way towards the end. So I went in, and so I passed all the eligibility criteria to be seen there. And so, yeah, the first lady who saw me, I think, was a legit dentist, and she figured out what was wrong. And then so I had one tooth up the top, which was sore, and then I had another tooth down the bottom, which was just basically completely broken away. Like wasn't much left of it. It just kind of started crumbling a while ago. And so she sort of patched up the top tooth, and then said, go home and we'll call you with another appointment to get a root canal at the top there, and the bottom tooth will have to be extracted. I'm like, all right, cool. This sounds like freaking fun. I don't like the dentist, Ian. I don't.
Well, we talked about it. To me, and I'm sure that this is wrong, right? I know that this is wrong, and I know that anyone who's listening who has any experience or knowledge of dentistry is going to react to what I'm about to say. But to me, dentistry still feels arcane and medieval.
It does.
In a way that nothing. Like, where are the lasers and the tooth robots that go in through my eyeballs and pull? Like, what? Why? It's still a dude or a dudette with pliers and a giant needle.
That's literally what it is. That's literally what it is, dude. Like, it's so. So I went in for the first session to do the tooth extraction, the one down the bottom, because that was the simplest to do.
Yeah.
Now, this is a student doctor. Lovely man. A lovely Canadian man. He's like 25 or so he's young. And he couldn't feign confidence to save his life. He was clearly unsure of himself, clearly nervous. And as I've talked about before, I've spent half of my life in hospital. I've dealt with a lot of students in my time, and I'm usually very like, bring the students in, let them work on me. It's fine, whatever. But he would do something, and 2 seconds later, just let me call my supervisor to come and take a look. Now, I'm glad he didn't go in and be all cavalier, but at the same time, it just made me very, very nervous. But anyway, so Ian. Now, what I'm about to tell you sounds like a scene from like a Ben Stiller comedy or something, but this is something that really happened to me. So he's fumbling around in my mouth to find a spot to inject the local anesthetic to numb my gum, and he's sort of fumbling around. He's pulling the needle in and out, and all of a sudden he turns his hand the wrong way, and the end of the needle goes into the tip of my nose. Now, I don't mean it just like poked me. I mean it went in, and he pulled it out, and my nose was bleeding, and he was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "It's okay." At first, I was like, "Ow, that really hurt." And, but then I just had this like, I didn't want to like go off on him because. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he's a student. And
we're
I didn't want to
men.
dob him in because I didn't want to get him in trouble. But I really hope that was enough of a scare for him to be careful when you're messing around with the needle near someone's face.
Yeah. Yeah. That could have been worse.
He's also lucky that he did it to me because I know like most people I know would get very angry about that, and rightly so. But I was just like, it's okay, I'm okay, it didn't damage me, it's fine. But dude, getting a tooth pulled, that shit sucks. Like,
I've had it done.
It is, like you said, it's very medieval. It's very just like, sticking metal things in and just like plying it out with like a freaking lever and stuff. And like,
I think people are so afraid of dentistry that there are people probably listening to this that are cringing at your description. So we can save them the pain.
If you're about to go to the dentist, let me assure you that it does not hurt. It just feels very, very strange. It's not painful. It just feels very weird, and there's lots of weird like snapping sounds, and it's unpleasant.
Not
but it's
making
not
it better
painful,
for them.
But you need to keep in mind that I am a wuss. Okay, I am an absolute wuss. So don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Yeah, so we get going, and he's like pulling away and it's like drilling and doing stuff, and then he grabs a scalpel and he's like, okay, so I need to cut your gum so we can get to the bottom of the tooth and get access to it. And I'm thinking, sure, but you just poked me in the nose with a freaking needle. Now you want to put a scalpel in my mouth? But anyway, look, it was fine, and the tooth came out, and it was fine, and I've also getting the root canal done on the top tooth, and I've had one session. There's 2 more to go in the next couple of weeks, and it'll be fine.
I mean, I'm saying this in a country that has no universal health care, so completely acknowledge that. But when you think about the term health care...
Yeah.
To me, that implies outside in.
Right.
Eyes, nose, mouth, ears, toes, feet. Healthcare is, heart, emotions,
Yeah. Yeah, and
it's weird that any concept of universal healthcare, like where you draw that line of, unless it's emergency care versus anything else, but that's not the case in your country. You have universal doctor care, but dental care was selectively excluded. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know why, but and that's the thing. Like dental issues can, in some cases, cause some very serious health problems.
You said you were having trouble eating. Like that is absolutely going to cause health problems, infections.
Well, Andy Hallett, who played Lorne in Angel, he developed a dental infection that weakened his heart, and that is what eventually killed him.
Jeez.
So, it's very serious. It can cause heart problems. I think it can cause kidney issues, and the last thing I need is more freaking kidney issues. But speaking of kidneys, so a day after I went to the dentist, I remember I was talking to you on Skype, and we were having like a PC versus Apple debate.
We were having a debate, yeah, and sometimes I get a little into them.
Yes.
I get a little excited, and I lean in.
Yeah.
And then you stopped responding, and I was like, did I lean in too hard? Did I go too far? Because sometimes I go too far. I acknowledge this.
You were very like...
I have a real problem with mothers. I know this.
But the thing is, too, you
sorry.
knew what you were talking about. You had your sources, you had links, like you were very I wasn't going to win that debate anyway.
Well, whenever I start asking leading questions,
they were very leading, you son of a bitch.
I don't lean too hard into the whataboutism. But for me, changing contexts to try and make a point helps, and that's normally when you should run if you don't want to have the conversation. Is when I'm like, well, have you thought about?
So
I remember that. I thought you were pissed.
You thought I threw a tantrum and stormed off.
Well, I wouldn't have used the word tantrum, but yes.
But, the word tantrum can be broadly used with me, let's be honest.
Sure. Occasionally you get upset with me.
Yeah, I'm a sensitive boy.
We both are. Anyway, what actually happened?
what actually happened was I was sitting here typing, then out of nowhere, I started feeling quite woozy, and then this jolt of pain hit me like a bolt of lightning, and it was weird because, I mean, I've talked about it before, but I have problems with my kidneys and I have chronic pain issues, but this came on. I don't think I've ever had it come on like that before. I went from 0 to 100 like that.
Yeah.
It was very, very bad. And generally, before I go to the hospital, I like to try and take care of it myself. So I took some very basic painkillers, just some paracetamol and ibuprofen because it's all I had. And then I had a hot shower because that sometimes helps settle down the pain, but it just got worse and worse and worse. And then I got out of the shower. I think I said to you I was going to the hospital.
That's
right?
how I knew it was bad. Was you went from nothing to I'm going to the hospital. Usually, you try and fight it and deal with it for a period of time.
And like I have a pretty high pain tolerance too. So I knew pretty much straight away that there was something going on. This wasn't just a typical bout of pain.
Now remind me the nature of your kidney trouble. You have one or you have two, but one of them is
I
a
have
dick?
1.5 kidneys.
1.5 kidneys. Okay.
So when I was like 16, I got this really bad case of pyelonephritis, I guess, which is an infection of the kidney. And from there, I've just had terrible kidney issues. Like, I don't know if the term kidney disease applies. Maybe, I don't know. They've never used that word, but I think kind of. But the long and short of it is, I get a lot of stones, sometimes infections, and just these chronic pain issues that sometimes I've been told that sometimes my chronic pain issues are just, there's nothing medically wrong with me. It's just my nerves are being dicks.
That's sweet.
Yeah. The way it was explained was that when I first got the infection and developed pain from that, it activated nerves there that are kind of dormant most of the time. But since they were activated, sometimes they just like to start firing pain signals for literally no reason. So I've gone to the hospital in pain, and they've said we can't find anything medically wrong with you. You're fine. And I'm like, I'm not freaking fine. I'm in freaking agony. What do you mean I'm fine?
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so
you have a problem too, where there are people in certain circumstances who drug seek.
Yes, it's called drug seeking.
Yeah,
so
who are, and I imagine, especially for that particular issue that you're talking about, where you don't manifest external symptoms, but the pain is very real and agonizing. That I imagine distinguishing between someone who is drug seeking and someone under your circumstances is a challenge. And I can't imagine something worse than being accused of that while suffering some of the worst pain that you've ever had.
Yeah, so drug seeking is basically when somebody goes to a hospital pretending to be in pain in the hopes that they will give them, most of the time, narcotic-based IV painkillers. And I've been accused of that a couple of times, and it is the most demoralizing thing ever. That's some of the lowest points of my existence, to be honest. And
we've been friends through some of it.
It feels very hopeless. And I think like my appearance doesn't help. I'm covered in tattoos and piercings, and I'm in an age group where I guess people do stuff like that. I don't know. But the first time it happened, it was because I had gone there too often in pain in the couple of months leading up to then.
Yeah, wasn't that later discovered to be a kidney stone?
It absolutely was. What happened was they left me in pain for like 4 hours, and then a doctor stormed in and said, Jack, stop carrying on when we're not giving you more morphine. And I'm like, dude, I didn't ask you for morphine. I didn't mention any specific painkillers. I've just told you that I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And then he went home, and then a nurse who knew me came in and said, all right, Jack, I'm going to get another doctor to look over you. And then so another doctor came in, and she said, we're concerned you were drug seeking, but we'll give you the benefit of the doubt, so we'll do a CT scan. They did a CT scan and found that I had a kidney stone, and I was just like, fuck you guys.
Yeah.
I was very pissed off. Yeah, because they left me in pain for like 4 hours. So yeah, fun times, man. But I complained about that. Like I wrote a very long, angry email that was very elegantly phrased. It's like I said fuck you without saying fuck you.
Sure.
It was very elegantly written, but also rather scathing. And you know what? Since then, like, it's happened a couple of times, but like since it hasn't happened in a while, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They've been pretty good. But anyway, so this incident though, this specific incident, I go into the hospital and they throw every painkiller under the sun at me. I had morphine, fentanyl, I had buscopan, ibuprofen, freaking everything, pretty much everything. And nothing was touching the sides. I was in all out agony for like 2 hours. And it got to the point where I was just... Because when the pain is really bad, it's like I go to another dimension. It's like
Sure.
I'm in a different world where there's just nothing but pain. I barely know what's going on around me. And I'm just like writhing around and like literally crying out in pain. At one point, I remember saying, "Oh God, please help me, please make it stop." And the nurse was like, "Oh Jack, I'm sorry, I'm trying." I'm like, "No, I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to anyone in particular. I'm just yeah, like whinging, I guess."
Whinging
that was
implies unwarranted complaining. If anything on earth was warranted complaining,
Right.
I think it would be this.
But yeah, I was basically like calling out to a deity that I don't believe in to help me. That's
Sure.
how desperate I was. And then the doctor comes in and she was like, "Jack, I'm sorry, we've done everything. I think you're just gonna have to ride this one out." And that broke me, dude. That from then I just cried my eyes out. But then from that point, I think like an hour later, it started to calm down a bit. And yeah, they did a CT scan and found that I have another kidney stone. It's a small one this time, 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters, something like that. My kidney stones are usually measured in centimeters, so I was pretty happy for them to use the word millimeters.
Yeah, the ones where it sounds like you're dropping a coin in the bedpan.
Yeah, pretty. Well, the centimeter ones you can't pass. Like, you would die if you passed them.
Yeah.
But so yeah, eventually the pain died down, and I was a wreck. And I also felt really sort of embarrassed because of how I was carrying on, because it was involuntary. I couldn't help
Of
it, but
course.
it just wouldn't have been pretty for anyone to see. You know, like,
So what? It doesn't
a
matter.
grown man like crying like a baby. I don't know.
No, dude. Like that was no one can judge that experience. Like there's no like pardon me, we're a clean show, but fuck anyone who would judge you for what you went through in that moment, in that kind of agony. They have no right.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
no yeah. It's like
Yeah.
no. There's no right way through that kind of experience. You're just being a human being in pain.
Right. No one said anything to me, so it was just me doing what I always do and like judging myself and beating myself up. But so they discharged me on like with some painkillers and antibiotics, and they said that I should pass the stone on my own. I was like, all right, cool. I mean, I don't like the idea of doing that, but sure, let's just do it. So I come home and I'm home for about 12 hours. So I got home in the morning, and then later that night, I clearly remember I got into bed and started feeling some pain. So I got up and I took some painkillers, and I just sat here for a little while, just waiting for them to kick in. Literally, like where I am right now, just on my computer, just watching random YouTube stuff. And out of nowhere, I started feeling really faint. Like I really
yeah.
I literally felt like I was gonna pass out. Now I have like anxiety and I get panic attacks and stuff, but this felt different. This didn't feel like a panic attack, and it got to the point where I literally like I thought I was gonna die. It's not that I felt like I was gonna die. I was like convinced that I was about to drop dead of something. It was terrifying. I don't think I've ever been that scared in my life. So I literally did the wheelchair equivalent of sprinting to the hospital. Like I felt like I had to get out of my apartment, or else I was gonna drop dead, and no one was gonna find me for days, and that'd be it. I was so freaking scared. And I figured if I passed out or dropped in the hallway, someone would find me, or somewhere on the street on the way to the hospital. But I was so scared that I was just wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I didn't put shoes on. I live really close to the hospital, by the way. It's like a 5-minute walk, less than that. So I basically just sprinted there because I was feeling just so lightheaded and dizzy, and I couldn't catch my breath. I felt like I couldn't breathe, and it wasn't dissimilar to a panic attack, but it was really extreme. It was beyond what anything else I hadn't experienced. And again, so I get to the emergency department, and the triage nurses see me, and at this point I'm frantic, like, because I'm convinced I'm gonna die. Again, I feel embarrassed about this because the way I was carrying on, like tears and just like, just freaking out in general. Then I had to wait in the waiting room for like 20 minutes because they took my vitals and saw that I was fine. My oxygen levels were fine. So I was getting oxygen. I was okay. And then I calmed down a little bit, and then they took me in. I explained to the doctor what had happened, and I said maybe I just freaked myself out. He's like, well, no, let's do some tests, because in infections and stuff going on can sometimes do that to you. So we'll just see. So they did some tests, and they found that, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something in my blood, some number in my blood is basically an infection marker. They found it was significantly worse than what it was when I went home. And it was like, like 12 hours. And so the doctor was like, I'm really not happy with this, so I'm going to speak to the urology doctors and see if we can admit you, because I'm not comfortable sending you home with these numbers. And I really appreciated that, because sometimes I feel that the doctors there are quite like slack, or just like blasé, I guess. So anyway, long story short, they admitted me and decided that I needed to go in for surgery to put in a stent, which is basically a little tube that goes into the ureter, which is the tube that connects the kidney to the bladder, and just sort of open it up, because mine was kind of like closed off. And that's basically, I mean, in very basic terms, doing that allowed the infection to clear a lot quicker. And it would help like the kidney stone pass a little too. And I don't like surgery. Surgery, like, even though it's minor, it's the general anesthetic that freaks me out. It's not.
Do you have any sense of how many you've had at this point?
It'd be over 100, without a doubt. Like somewhere between 100 and 200. And it's not the surgery itself, because this is like this is such a simple thing that they could do it with their eyes closed. It's very low risk. It's not, but going under general anesthetic, there's always a chance that you're not gonna wake up, and that scares me. But it's just, and no, no, it's hard because I needed it done, and so
Yeah.
I can't say no. You know, I mean, I can, but I shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, when I went under like surgery and stuff, when I was a kid, my mum would give consent, and I wouldn't have a say in it. I'm a child. The
Right.
adults make their decisions for me. But as an adult, it's like I can walk out of there at any moment, like any freaking moment I want. But I can't because it's gotta be done. But anyway, I had a really scary moment going under the anesthetic, which has never happened to me before. So they inject the anesthetic into you, and there's a period of like 15 to 20 seconds before you actually go to sleep, and I could feel it coming on. And so I think I said something to them like, all right, well, that's me done. You guys have fun. And they like giggled. And then as I was going to sleep, I tried to breathe in and taking a couple of breaths in, but it felt like my lungs were like paralyzed. It was such a very scary experience. And my memory is a little fuzzy, but I think they saw that I was panicking about that, and they said, "Oh no, you're fine. Don't worry, don't worry." But I went to sleep in sheer panic, and but of course I woke up and I was fine. I spent a couple of days in hospital, and yeah, I got out and I'm I'm doing okay. I'm still sore, but
Sure.
yeah, it's okay. But I mean, these incidences always trigger stuff for me.
In what way?
I have a lot of health anxiety, and I always I have this underlying fear always that I'm not going to have the long life because of all this stuff that goes on. And the thing is, it's logically true. Like, a lot of my anxieties, I know deep down that they're absolute nonsense. But this one has evidence. This one has logic to it.
Are you talking about, well, what's the logic? Are you talking about the life expectancy of people with spina bifida, or?
Well, not spina bifida, but because the life expectancy of spina bifida in general is pretty close to the general population. But just my kidney problems, and just, I mean, the kidneys are a vital organ. If your kidneys go to shit, you end up on dialysis, and it's not good. And so I just feel like things get slowly worse and worse over the years. So I just have this fear that sometime in the next 10, 20 years, maybe, that I'm just gonna, my kidneys are going to fail and I'm going to die. But that's the thing. I don't know for certain.
Well, of course, no one knows for certain.
Yeah. And I haven't been... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I haven't been given any kind of terminal diagnosis. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, in terms of, you deal with a set of circumstances that are not common in the culture. So when you talk about those feelings of guilt or shame or whatever they may be, whatever is normal or whatever is defined, whatever just need not apply in this particular circumstances. You mentioned that you had between 100 or 200 surgeries. Mm-hmm. I've had one.
Okay.
I had appendicitis when I was 6.
Oh, that's gnarly. That is, though.
I mean, it's fine. It is what it is. My point is, there is a vast discrepancy between your experience with doctors and surgeries and all of that, and I don't know if I'm normal, but let's say I broke a bone, mm-hmm. and that's not true. I've had skin cancers removed twice. So
I remember that.
We'll say on the high end 5, right? Mm-hmm. That seems, from my zero knowledge and zero experience, medical diagnosis, normal. an average amount
Over
of...
a lifetime, yeah.
Sure.
I'd say that's average, yeah.
Or for a man who is at 41 years old,
Yeah.
you've had 150. That
Somewhere around there,
sculpts
yeah.
a different set of
Yeah.
concerns and fears and anxieties and all
Right.
of that. And so, like, but I still think, like, in terms of, like, whatever but you probably still feel subject to mainstream expectations of
Sure.
what
Yeah, we're all
normal is, and this
susceptible to
just
that,
don't
yeah.
apply in the circumstances that you've had to deal with, man.
Yeah. I mean, I realized from a very early age that my life is not average. I figured out quite early on that, normal kids don't spend months at a time in hospital and stuff. And I think growing up in hospital, and seriously, if you added up the amount of time I spent in hospital, it'd be in the years. Like, it'd be years of my life,
Right.
I think my longest stretch was 6 months when I was a kid at some point. But I've seen from a very early age, like, the things that can go wrong with a person. I'm not naive to any of that stuff. I'm quite knowledgeable, and that's a good thing, but also a terrible thing, because
I'm just saying those feelings of guilt and shame to me seem based on a reality that is not applicable to you
Right.
and what you go through. Like, you sound strong to me. Like, the ability to, the tolerance, the ability, the courage to continue to. Well, what choice do I have? I want to be healthy, and to go and to do it again is like, that's bravery to me, man. That's not.
thanks.
The anxiety is not. Bravery is not being fearless. Bravery is having the fear and making the choice that's best for yourself, regardless.
You
know.
have a choice. You don't have a good choice, but you have a
Well,
choice.
I mean, if you want to put it in those terms, of course.
Yeah. My psychologist said very similar things, and she's been amazing through all of this. I think on the day I was going in for surgery, she and I were booked to have a session. I obviously wasn't able to make it, and I messaged her and told her, and she replied to my message while I was in surgery, I think. And the thing I really appreciated was, so I got out of recovery. It was pretty late at night, and it was like 10 o'clock that I was back on the ward and just sort of like relaxing and feeling like I'd been hit by a freight train. But I sent her a text just telling her what was going on, and she left her work phone on into the night because she was worried about me and wanted to know what was going on with me. I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
But then, I think she called me the next day, and we had a session over the phone, and then I saw her last week as well too, because she didn't want to leave it too long before we had the next session. But I've talked to her about all this stuff, and we're trying to work through it, and
Well, the other thing that you and I talked about offline, because you brought up the contemplation of mortality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like, I mean, I don't know. I have no, I personally have no frame of reference for that in the circumstances that you're describing. But I do know that, like, and this is, it's so true, it's trite, right? It's so true, it's trite, which is that, like, mortality is a thing.
yeah,
And we are so specifically insulated from it, separated from it. But at some point, whether it's when I have friends in my age demographic, and we've been talking about our parents are getting older. Our parents are dealing with illness. Our parents are, and we're worried. We think about, can I move to this state because then I won't be close if their health starts to be a problem or whatever. And so, like, eventually, consideration of mortality and the inevitability of it begins to seep in. And I have already thought about, I mean, like, I'm something of a fatalist. I'm a reforming fatalist,
Okay.
a reforming nihilist, but a reforming fatalist. Lonnie and I joke about When Harry Met Sally all the time because I'm definitely Harry from that movie, who is always turning to the last page of the book. That way, if he dies before he finishes it, he knows how it ends. Right? Is the
Okay.
line
Right.
is the
Right.
line from the movie? And there's scenes where even in his 40s, he's turning to the last page and reading the book. And kind of at various points in my life, I've found that strangely therapeutic because when I'm sort of bogged down in the anxieties and fears and whatever of relationships or who am I or whatever, it's like, for me, that is the nuclear button perspective,
Right.
which is like in 100 years, we'll all be dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in whatever form, I think that eventually it's so true of everyone. It's a cliche that we insulate ourselves from by it being a cliche, which is that we're all gonna die. And I think that
Yeah.
I think that we all need to process that thing at one point or another.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And to just
Yeah.
sort of go like, I could step off a curb, and I
Yeah.
drank hard
Yeah.
for 25 years. I'm pretty sure I cut a few years off the top as a result of it. And I've been obese for 10 years, whatever that does to blood sugar levels and all of that. And at this stage in my life, my 40s are probably the happiest I've been in 20 years, 25
That's
years.
good.
And yet I now look at those years I gave away in my 20s by hardcore drinking and wishing that, and feeling regret that I may have lost a couple of years off the top as a result of it, which is my journey, which is the ways in which this is sort of rearing its head in my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yours,
It's something we all have to grapple with at
right?
some point.
I mean, I think I think, if you talk to your doctor, they're gonna be like, "There's no way you can't know 10 years, you can't know 15 years." But I think again, it seems very human to me that you're having these thoughts because, yeah, man, like someone who deals with the circumstances, of course, I'd be thinking about how long is this going to go on or whatever. And you can be terrified of that thought, you can deny that thought, or you can kind of go, I don't know,
Right.
and sort of let it find a place, and then say, what am I doing today? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of like speaking to the doctors about it, I don't bother because I already know what they're gonna say. They give you the scripted response,
Sure.
and so I don't bother. But I talked to my psychologist about it, and I love the fact that she didn't try to like talk me out of it. She more or less like just had the talk that we just had and just said like, you don't know when you are gonna die, but maybe rather than trying to fight back or think your way out of it, you need to come to some sort of acceptance as to
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there was a movement in psychology that was very in the 70s or the 60s that was very centered around the idea of death and how Western society has been built up around. The book that, if I remember correctly, started the movement was called Denial of Death. And it's an analysis of culture that suggests that everything that we do is built around insulating ourselves from the truth of our own mortality, from assisted living homes and moving the old. It used to be that family members got old in the home with the family.
Yeah.
And died at home, and now we have assisted living and care, and they're sort of separated out. I'm not super familiar with it, so I know I'm going to represent it poorly, but it's an interesting read if you're curious about
Yeah, definitely.
These kinds of things and the
Yeah.
permutations of it. And by the way, just for anyone listening, I don't endorse. You know, I'm not sure if what you said to me and my reaction to it was the healthiest, most supportive thing that I could have responded to as a friend, but it was the most honest that I
Yeah. No, I appreciate
had.
the
Do
honesty
you know what I mean?
because it's true. It's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, look, I don't know what's going to happen. I could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
Sure.
Or my kidneys could kill me in the next 10 years. I don't know. But the key really is to just accept whatever's going to happen.
Yeah, to me, more and more I realize that like my anxieties are driven specifically not by the fear itself, but by my resistance to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And trying to steer something that is unsteerable.
Yeah. If I'm writing a script and I'm feeling anxiety about is it good, is it not, the thing that's actually happening is I'm resisting writing the script because it might turn out bad.
Right.
As opposed to saying, yeah, it might be bad. All right, let's start writing. You know? And sort of the version of that to me is like, I might be hit by a bus. What am I doing today? Do I need groceries? You know?
Right. Yeah.
Like the things that are out of our control are out of our control.
Yeah. 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 So it's just about making peace with it. And I don't think I'm there just yet, but I'm sort of aware of where I need to go. So it's a process of getting there, I guess.
To me, I mean, when I'm working on stuff like that, I find a more helpful perspective is that I'm actually already where I need to be. It's more a process of letting things go. You
right.
know? Like
Okay.
there's not a place to push yourself. There's just like, what can I let go of today? You know, because you're already good, man. You know, it's just these things that you're holding on to that are making that are the burden. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And like, what is going to happen is already going to happen. So there's no point.
Well, that's a very
freaking out about it.
that's You triggered my inner philosopher there, talking about ideas of faith and stuff.
But I'm also sort of from the Sarah Connor school of thought, and no fate but what we make. So I don't know.
Well, I think we went to some unexpected places there.
Yes, a lot longer than I expected too.
Yeah.
So
I had some other bullets that I wanted to hit. But I think I'll save them and we'll get into them.
Yeah. Me too.
Next time. So, do you want to move ahead?
Yeah.
You had something else that you wanted to mention.
Yes. So I do have a very special announcement that we are both extremely stoked and excited for. Something we've been teasing and talking about for what feels like forever now, but we finally have some official Podcast of the Nerds merchandise. Woo! We did it! It only took us I don't know, a year?
Yeah, well, there are two designs, and one of them is going to become the artwork for the channel. But there are two designs that we have put on the store. There are links in the show notes. If you're just curious to go take a look at them, you should. Jack's going to throw up the two designs right now. One of them is a logo.
Yep.
Where Jack looks like a supernova of light and courage and heroism. And the other one is a comic book cover of the two of us together. And they are both awesome and spectacular.
Yeah, I think we're fighting some monsters off. It's some time ago now, a very talented viewer of ours reached out and offered their services in helping us design something. And we were just like, sure. Sure. I mean, if you want to, sure. And then what we got back was so mind-blowingly good. I'm like, how are we not paying for this? This is insane. We weren't able to offer any remuneration.
Yes, I'm very poor.
Yes.
This is a poor show.
Yes. But yeah, they're so good, and you should go and check it out. But yeah, we also want to give a huge shout out to Liz, aka Artifact Pottery, over on Etsy, who designed them.
I thought it was Instagram. Was it Etsy?
Etsy. Oh, and she also has an Instagram as well. Both
Yes.
Artifact Pottery, but she also has an Etsy shop. Yeah. Yeah, we weren't, because Ian and I don't have any money. We weren't able to offer her any kind of money, but we are so incredibly thankful.
We're very grateful, Liz. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We'll be linking all of her stuff in the show notes as well. So do go and check her out and buy some of her stuff in her Etsy shop if you dig it.
Yeah, we put the designs on. I think the throw pillows kind of look the coolest. I mean, I want all of it, but the sweatpants where you're on the butt and I'm on the front with my tongue out. I mean, I'm not changing it, but it seems a little inappropriate.
Yeah. But I mean, we're a little inappropriate.
A little, yeah. All right. So, thank you, Liz. We're very grateful.
Thank you so much.
And yeah. So, a little heavier than we intended. Me talking about trauma therapy and you talking about the pain that you've been through. We didn't really shoot for that, but it is what it is. Yeah. It's the truth of the past couple of weeks. We thought this was going to
be a little light and fun.
Yeah,
but
we meant to go light.
We did, but oh well.
Well, let's segue then into the Nevers. So we want to try something a little different. Jack and I have not watched the episode yet. We are going to watch it now. So published in tandem to this podcast on the YouTube channel will be a full-length reaction video where we watch the episode together and talk about it while we're watching it. And then we're going to come back here and finish the rest of this podcast, discussing our first reactions to it, feelings about it. You know, the creator is sort of infamous at this point. You know, I think is every time I'm getting used to seeing him show up in Twitter tags and go, and it no longer fills me with the dread that it used to. Where I just kind of go, what's the new thing? And he was in the news just the other day again. I believe it was yesterday, actually. So it is what it is, but we still, I don't think I'm going to be adding any more Whedon content to the channel beyond what I've already begun. But I'm still curious, and I still have enjoyed the previous works, so we wanted to check it out and talk about it with you. So we're going to pause now, and then we're going to go over to the reaction video, pick up from there, and then we're going to come back here and discuss the episode. So we will be...
So the next thing you see/hear will be us after the fact.
Yeah. If you want to watch the episode with us, links to the reaction are in the show notes, and we will be right back. All right, so we just watched Season 1, Episode 1 of The Nevers. Jack, what did you think of it? First of all, what were your expectations going into it? What your thoughts, your sort of like...
Honestly... I didn't have any expectations because I know very little about it.
But you had to be carrying biases or concerns.
I went in thinking that I was going to see something that would remind me of the Umbrella Academy, and it didn't really. Except for one character, but that wasn't really...
I haven't watched the Umbrella Academy just yet.
It's very, very good. I love
Okay.
it. It takes a superhero thing and sort of does its own thing with it. I like it. And this seems to be doing a similar thing, actually, come to think of it. I mean, it's only based on one episode, but it seems to be doing something fresh with the superhero thing.
All right. Well, before we go any further, so The Nevers, an epic. These are the IMDb summaries. An epic tale following a gang of Victorian women who find themselves with unusual abilities, relentless enemies, and a mission that might change the world. We watched the pilot. 3 years after an inexplicable event suddenly equips them with extraordinary abilities, Amalia True and Penance Adair work to protect their kind from widespread deepening antipathy. Meanwhile, police officer Frank Mundi Ben Chaplin investigates a string of murders at the hands of a reportedly touched and highly dangerous serial killer named Malady. And for the record, we're not going to spoil anything beyond... we're not going to spoil. There's nothing really to spoil. There's not other than maybe the last 2 minutes of the episode. Yeah. I don't think that there are plot developments that play out as big twists or really, huge surprises. So that said, you thought it was going to be like the Umbrella Academy. It sounds like you weren't carrying the baggage into this that I was.
No, certainly. But ultimately, I didn't really know what to expect. Going into a Joss Whedon thing, you expect a certain amount of quality in the writing, and I think we got that. From what we saw.
And I was interested. You still have not watched Firefly.
No, I've seen the pilot episode at least half a dozen times now.
Right.
Because I'm like, oh yeah, I'll start watching Firefly. So I watch it. And then that pilot's like an hour and a half. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to take a little break. And then I don't.
It's 90 minutes long. And it is, compared to the rest of the episodes, I think slow implies a negative criticism. It's a slow burn. It's a very slow burn pilot episode that I don't think really feels like the rest of the show.
Right.
Which is a little more pacey and adventure-y than that pilot episode feels.
Funnily enough, that's also how I felt about this a little bit. Even like just in the first half anyway, I felt like it was building to something kind of, I think, like once they go into the theater, that's where for me it started to really pick up. But in saying that, I was sold within the first 10 minutes though, because I thought it was just really cool. I was digging everything I was seeing.
Yeah, well, there's a rip-roaring setup. The first 10 minutes is a fun, high-paced action sequence.
Yeah.
Where we kind of get a sense of the way the world works and that there are powers. And then it sort of becomes a bit more expositional to sort of set up the series and who are the different powers and the different groups.
Yeah.
And then it ramps back into... they go to the opera and it ramps back up to a little more action, and then...
Yeah.
There's the event that sets everything up, or the reveal of the event that sets everything up.
Yeah. I also found it a tiny bit hard to follow until it really comes full circle there. And then you start to go, oh yeah, that makes sense and this makes sense.
Well, Lonnie and I do...
That's just a storytelling technique.
Yeah, Lonnie and I do this kind of format for Let's Watch Roulette, which is the patron-only podcast, which we need to do another episode of. But I do find that the reaction format, when it's two people, is a little more difficult to follow things that are more intricate.
Yeah, because like there's you're trying to keep a conversation going, so you're not just sitting there silent the whole time. Well, but you're also watching something you haven't seen before, so Yeah,
I don't feel beholden to that necessarily, but I do think that when we go back and forth, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say, and I have questions for you and so forth. And there was an entire intro to a scene with, I went, oh, HBO breasts. There we go.
Yeah, I honestly wasn't expecting to see boobs, but we did. I wasn't expecting that. I don't know.
So, what did you think overall? What was your?
I really liked it. I thought it was pretty, very, very pretty. The production design is amazing. It was quippy. It had humor. Action sequences really, really cool, and some really grisly moments too. Like in the theater. Like again, we're not going to spoil, but holy shit!
Yeah.
And the woman that plays Malady, incredible.
But yeah, she was a lot of fun. I thought the cast was terrific. So, there's a fair amount of baggage for me in going into a property like of Whedon's specifically.
Right.
We've had to talk about it on the show. I don't want to get into the current events in the news and all of that, but
it's not really relevant to what we're doing here.
My professional life, my own fault, is tethered to two of his creations, and
three kind of.
Say what?
Three kind of because of
Firefly.
Yeah,
with Firefly.
Yeah.
But so I have found the news cycle. Selfishly, I found the news cycle kind of exhausting. And I'm ready to. We've talked on previous episodes. I'm ready to diversify my own content and to talk about other things and to tell my own stories and to get into other kinds of content and I don't think a persistent. Jess and I will eventually finish Firefly. I don't think there will be a Dollhouse series, and I have no intention of going into this. But I have to admit that as kind of cherished as Buffy and Angel are for me personally, I was hoping not. I think a part of me was hoping not to get into this.
Okay, no, I get it.
And I noticed that only through the contrast of when I started to get into it.
Yeah, you actually specifically called that out when it happened.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't realize that was the place that I was coming at it from because, I just speaking about, he has become a problematic figure in media, but whatever you think, and the allegations and all of that have kind of been put forward, nonetheless, the writing is still really good.
It is.
Buffy is.
Yeah, like we discussed during while we were watching it, it's everything that has happened doesn't like all of a sudden make his writing bad. It just doesn't. Right. It's still entertaining. It's still good. As much of a shithead as he is, or seems to be, allegedly. I don't
Lonnie, especially since we're both sort of, or me more so than her, I am professionally tied to his work, and so in the past, as these news stories have kind of come up, people come and ask me what to think as they're trying to figure out, does this affect how I feel about these shows that were seminal and important to me growing up? And it's weird because I don't consider myself, I have no idea how the Hollywood systems work and directing and all of that. I talk about, I'm a fan too, and I talk about these things from my personal perspective relating to the work. So, as interested as I was, or as curious as I was, I think a part of me was hoping not to get engrossed in the material, and I did in that first 10-minute sequence.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
I was sold.
Yeah,
straight away. I'm like, I'm in.
It's very joyful.
Yeah.
You know, Lonnie and I have talked about it quite a bit because of, again, this is what I do as a job. I'm writing about Into the Woods and so forth. And her position, or the thing that she regularly comes back to is, he's a great writer, and he should write. No one's asking him not to write. Most of the Ray Fisher stuff and the Ray Fisher stuff and Charisma Carpenter's stuff and all of that are about not being in charge of people, not being in a position of power, not being having power over other people. And it's just so strange to and again, assuming all of those things are true, that is the case. But again, I think at this point there's so much smoke. It's tough to say that there is no fire.
Like, sure, like neither you or I were there and know exactly what went down, but it's pretty safe to say that it's all true at this point.
Yeah, and that was always the difficult thing about getting into another property that he is creatively tied to, is you can't having a conversation about it publicly as we do, you cannot completely avoid that topic and that conversation. But also, what inspired me to actually suggest that we do this on the podcast was Jane Espenson tweeted out, check out the Nevers tonight on the show. And it's a good reminder of these things are made by platoons of people.
Absolutely. You're not just supporting Joss Whedon's work, you're supporting the work of hundreds, if not thousands of people, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The number of artists.
HBO makes good stuff. You're supporting HBO. I mean,
the actors, the actresses, the DPs, the other writers on the show. There are so many people involved. Yeah. And watching it, I noticed that my feeling, we talked about how I was reading in the news how after the Ray Fisher Warner Brothers stuff started to come, there were new developments. Again, whatever's going on with that, HBO actually went and removed Whedon's name from all of the advertising for the show.
Because it was Joss Whedon's The Nevers.
It was Joss Whedon's The Nevers, and it became The Nevers. And we noticed in this show, there's no opening credits. There's a title card that comes in about 10 minutes into the entire thing. But no Whedon in the title card.
And then at the end, in the end credits, it says directed by Joss Whedon.
Directed by. I didn't see a writing credit, which I was looking for. But it's directed by.
And Jane Espenson got the executive producer credit.
Yeah, Douglas Petrie was in the executive producer credits as well. Yeah. So my feelings about it turned from me not wanting to get into another property of his to, boy, if this is really good, it would be a shame if that's the reason no one goes and watches it.
Right.
For the sake of all of the other people involved in it.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is, though, too, it's like, okay, Buffy, you and I both love Buffy. It means more to us than probably any other piece of media. But the Joss Whedon stuff, the stuff that has come out, for me, it's disingenuous to take that and then say, oh, well, I don't like Buffy anymore. Like, I do. Like, it doesn't change what Buffy has done for me, you know?
I wouldn't say that. It's this kind of thing is when... I hate the word problematic, but when problematic creators sort of are revealed, the idea is not to throw away the work that they've done, but to mitigate their ability to do damage in the future. Right?
Yeah.
And that's why I appreciate Lonnie's perspective of, he can write to his heart's content. Just if these allegations of abuse are accurate, he should not be a studio should not put him in charge of people again.
Sure.
I think that is that is the way of handling these particular circumstances.
But to play devil's advocate, possibly, I mean, should he be given some sort of chance to make amends, to be better, to redeem himself sometime down the line, because people can learn and change and evolve. Sure. and like redemption is something that is very important to me. I see it as a very
I agree
core value I have, that people should have the chance to do better.
I'm going to cheat and say I don't know the answer to that question.
Me neither. I don't know. I don't know the answer either. It's just something I wanted to put out there.
I think that
no idea.
I don't know if you've been following the Scott Whedon allegations that have been occurring. So Scott Whedon is a Hollywood producer.
Okay.
Who there was a big article done on him in Variety, I want to say, about how he has been physically abusive to the people that work for him, how he screams at them, how he there's a I don't know if it's famous, but there's a infamous movie called Swimming with Sharks, which is a story about a guy who moves to Hollywood to get into the film industry and becomes the personal aide of an incredibly abusive Hollywood producer who yells at him, who demeans him, who does terrible things to him. And in the story, he ends up with that producer taped to a chair, torturing him, and is faced with the story builds to that. You see him torturing the producer as we flash back through the tale that brings us to that moment, and then the movie concludes with that. So the producer is played by Kevin Spacey in a weird bit of irony. And the I can't remember I can see his face right now. He was in The Freshman, but I can't remember the name of the actor that
Dustin Hoffman?
No, that he stars across from. It's a younger actor at the time. But anyway, that movie, the character Kevin Spacey plays, was apparently inspired by Scott Whedon.
Oh, okay.
And yesterday, Lonnie and I watched Fences, which was a wonderful film that I keep thinking about, starring Denzel Washington and Viola Davis. Mm-hmm. And right at the end of the movie, it says produced by, and Scott Whedon's name is right at the top of it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, culturally, with social media and the immediacy of social media and the news and our interconnectedness and anyone's ability to have a voice and to put things out and all of that, we're really experiencing a time period where the Scott Whedons of the world, where there is a bell curve in my mind, and at one end of it are the darkest of the dark.
Well, yeah,
and then sort of on down the line, but people are being kind of outed. It's almost like there's there's just a shift in old social operating procedures.
Yeah,
that we're culturally saying are unacceptable. Yeah, but there's this necessary process of all of that being pushed out into the open right now before something healthier takes its place. We hope.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of those questions of what does for social if a crime has not been committed, we just consider behavior to be horrible and inappropriate and unethical.
That's the thing. Yeah. I just want to point out that I would not ask that question for someone like Kevin Spacey or Bill Cosby.
Of course not. Of course not.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But I mean, for behavior we deem socially unacceptable or unethical or whatever it may be. Those questions, like the Louis C.K. stuff of not understanding
that was
power.
weird.
Yeah, well, it was weird, and I mean, there's a power dynamic there that he wasn't understanding and so forth. But the questions of how long and how long should he be away from the stage, and how long should his career be no longer a thing, or whatever. I think culturally we're still kind of, because there is no rhyme for which we've defined what punishments are and what is acceptable. Well, we don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, there's no answer.
Yet,
Yeah, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah. So those kinds of I don't know if Scott Rudin did commit. From what I read of the article, I didn't read of any crime. It was just abusive behavior.
Yeah, which of course is morally wrong. Of course.
Yeah, and I mean,
it doesn't have to be a crime for it to be bad.
Yeah, Gal Gadot. The news the other day was that Gal Gadot had gone on Israeli television and said that Whedon threatened her career on the set of the Justice League, and said that he can make her career messy and terrible. I don't remember the exact phrasing. She says she handled it at that moment. Then you have Ray Fisher's accusations and so forth. And again, none of it is. This is all from one side of the story, and again, none of it is. I'm reminded of Army Fisher in Full Metal Jacket. Right? Mm-hmm. There are contexts for which we consider dictatorial, abusive behavior acceptable.
Right.
Now,
okay.
Not arguably, Full Metal Jacket is about maybe the dehumanization of those men. I mean, not maybe. The dehumanization of those men is a...
But that's what the military does. That's how they create a soldier. Is a crime in and of
itself. Is a crime against humanity of sorts. But that is that is Armie Hammer was improving that on set because he had
Ali
been
Ermey,
that.
Right?
Excuse me, not Armie Hammer. Armie Hammer. Geez, that's a different. Armie Ernie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was improving that on set. Yeah, it was a wonderful performance because he had been a drill sergeant.
Yeah, he was basically playing himself and just riffing.
Yeah, so which is a notoriously abusive position of power that we as a society deem acceptable because these men are put into life and death situations.
And because it's almost like also there is an element of, well, that's just how it's done. That's just what the military does.
Right. And I think...
So there is a complacent nature to it, I think.
I think that Michael Chabon wrote a letter of apology because he worked with Scott Rudin and said he saw Rudin's behavior. I read his apology letter on Medium. He said he worked with Scott Rudin and was complicit in his behavior because he never said anything. And he said, I just felt like, I guess that's how it's done in these situations.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And that's, we often, and so perhaps previously, we excuse that from people in high pressure jobs like producing and directing and stuff. We expect them to be divas and whatnot, but it still doesn't make it right.
Yeah, I mean that's the I bring up the drill sergeant example because the more I've thought about this, the more I've thought there are certain contexts where we accept abuse, you know, and whether or not the drill sergeant example should be reconsidered, I don't know. But I think that we as a culture kind of accept that sort of thing because those men and women are going to be put in life and death situations and need at least from the perspective of Army philosophy, need to be reprogrammed.
Yeah, and that's what it is. That's why they dehumanize them. It's essentially breaking them down and building them up into something else.
Yeah, but we're not outing stories of drill instructors being abusive jerks, you know. But there is
a tricky one, man.
There is a spectrum, whether we like it or not. There is a spectrum by which we kind of accept that there will be abusive situations, and I guess to this point, there are some people in the film industry or Hollywood or the people who are at the highest levels of success that they got there because they're tough or because they are no nonsense.
Some career paths, it's almost expected that you step on other people to climb your way to the top. That's just the norm.
It's like that study that was done that found that a number of CEOs are sociopaths.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
And yet, so this is the way things have existed for a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. And yet we are now going through, we're culturally purging that kind of behavior in certain forms, in certain contexts, and so forth. And and that to me is kind of my, and I'm for it. Obviously, I'm for it. But that, but the question of, well, what do we do? Like, how long do we as a society say, no one go to Whedon movies, or whatever? I don't know the answer to that question. Like, the hell?
Yeah, and I know some people who are resolute in the fact that they will never watch another Whedon-made property again. They're just done. And I totally respect that. I can't fault them for that.
I think that absolutely everyone, like the answer to the personal question of, are you going to continue to watch Buffy? Are you going to continue to watch Angel? Is personal. You know, there are. I don't think I can watch another Kevin Spacey movie. Now that I've heard the story
career is over for good anyway.
Yeah, now that I've heard the story of what happened, and what that man went through. He's on Star Trek Discovery. I can't remember his name right now. You know, and those movies were not made by Kevin Spacey. They were made by hundreds of people.
Right.
You know, and he was in Seven is a seminal film, but I don't think I've not had a desire to watch anything made by Kevin Spacey or that involved Kevin Spacey since then.
I liked American Beauty. That was a good one.
Yeah. But that's my personal, but I think we've talked about this before. I saw an interview with Jerry Seinfeld. He was talking to Stephen Colbert. And they were talking about this. They were talking about, this was after Cosby was revealed, and Colbert asked him if he could still listen to Cosby's old work, Bill Cosby himself, which I still have memorized, and a number of other works. And Seinfeld said, yeah. He says he's a student of comedy, and those are some of the most brilliant comedic works of stand-up ever created. Okay. And he can separate,
art from the artist.
Art from the artist in those circumstances. So I don't know. It's just I knew that talking. It's funny that I apologize if you tuned in hoping that we were going to have just a conversation of the Nevers and nothing else.
This was inevitable, really.
I think that at least for this first episode, like for me, there is so much baggage tied up in Whedon as a creator and this spectrum of acceptability that we're figuring out as a culture right now.
Right.
That I couldn't have gotten into the show without at least touching on it.
And that's the thing. I think if we didn't touch on it, people would be asking us questions about it anyway.
Yeah. Well, at least grappling with my own feelings about, am I going to continue to watch? I don't think I'll be doing any new content for it on the main channel. I think I'm going to watch.
I'm interested. I can't not finish it now, especially because it was really good. It just was.
A lot of joy. It was a lot of fun.
Great performances. Like, the set design was incredible.
Wonderful soundtrack. I was going to look up the name of the music by Mark Isham. Where have I heard that before?
I don't think I know that name.
Rings a bell to me, but when he's got quite the resume. Anyway, yeah. So Jack, you're gonna watch more?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I will as well.
It's very fun.
If you've enjoyed us chatting about this or the reaction video, you had a gander and you enjoyed us and you want us to do this again for future episodes, we promise to be a little more limited and specific to the episode itself.
Yeah. Now we've gotten that out of the way. We don't have to go into it again.
Look, I'm sorry. I had to get it out of my system.
Going into that stuff.
No,
it's not fun for us.
No, I don't want to talk about it, but
no,
I had to get it out of my system.
Yeah.
So I apologize, but if you do want us to talk about future episodes of The Nevers, leave a comment down below and let us know.
We don't really have a plan going forward what we're going to do with it, but we'll have a chat about it and we'll see.
Sure. Yeah. Well, before we get to the fanfic reading, I just want to let you know that I'm at Ian Nittram on Twitter.
And I am at Lack of Surprise 1. That's all one word with a number 1 at the end.
If you'd like to support the podcast and keep us flush with painkillers and therapy.
Yeah. That sounds good to me.
At patreon.com/passion of the nerd. With the $5 and up club, you can join us at the Hangout in 2 weeks-ish, where we will be discussing Guys Will Be Guys. It's in my experience now, some of the episodes that are not the marquee, incredible episodes. No, it's... Shroud of Ramon.
Yeah, it's Shroud of Ramon.
Sorry, Shroud of Ramon.
I'm thinking, like, my immediate thought was, like, Guys Will Be Guys again? Like, that I can't escape that episode, but that's because we've already done it.
Yeah,
it seems to keep popping up.
Shroud of Ramon. In my experience, the Hangout discussions for breather episodes actually tend to be some of the more interesting discussions. I mean, Eternity was one of my favorite discussions, and then we had a real banger for Shadow.
Yeah, Shadow was great.
Which is not a breather episode, but certainly not one of the best in season 5.
No, yeah, it kind of feels like filler to me, as I said at the Hangout.
Yeah, so that's patreon.com/passion of the nerd. On Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, Jack and I will be doing a live stream rewatch of the episode. And then 6:30, I will open up the stream and do a rewatch of the episode guide before we join in and talk about it with the group. If you can't make it, the replays for those can be found in a playlist over on the main channel.
You can also help us out by grabbing yourself something from passionofthenerd.com/store. And we have new designs, as we mentioned earlier.
Thank you, Liz.
Podcast-specific merch. Yes, again, thank you to the amazingly talented Liz for those. But yeah, you can find hoodies, mugs, phone cases, all of that stuff. I think we've also got a throw pillow.
We have pillows.
Yeah, with our faces on them. So if that's your thing, go and check it out.
Yeah, and with the sweatpants and the yoga pants have one of us on the crotch and the other one on the
One on
butt.
the butt.
It's a
Yeah,
little weird, but
it is.
it's
But we
delightfully
dig it.
so. I need to get the sweatpants.
I need to get it all. But yeah, if that's your thing, go and check it out. And yeah, thanks, Liz.
All right, thank you, Liz. Let's go to the fanfic reading now. Here is Gone by Terri Botta, chapter 44. It wasn't difficult to find a stairwell that led down into the bowels of the fortress. Forcing herself to descend down the passageway was another thing entirely. The way was dark, and the stank of mold and decay, and the stairs were slippery with God knew what. But she slowly made her way down into the blackness. Using a simple illumination spell, she created a small light to guide her down the narrow corridor. The walls were close and the ceiling low, but she had no troubles finding the dungeon door. It was low and made of heavy wood, and there was a small barred window in it. Using both hands, she pulled free the heavy bolt and opened the door to the chamber. The room was dark and silent, and it smelled foul. Old straw littered the stone floor, and the remnants of manacles and shackles hung from the walls, along with a very colorful assortment of weapons and torture instruments. There was a series of cells lining the far wall, and another solid door with a barred window at the end of the chamber. Holding her little light high, she looked around, and in the far corner she thought she saw a faint hint of movement, and moved towards it. There, huddled in the darkest corner with his hands wrapped around his knees, was the true William. He raised frightened eyes to her as she approached and tried to make himself even smaller than he already had. "Don't be afraid," she soothed, coming near. His face was dirty and streaked with blood and tears. "Who are you?" he asked in a faltering voice. She knelt beside him. "I'm Willow. I'm a friend. I'm here to find Spike." William cast a nervous glance at the barred wooden door. I don't think you can go in there." She looked at the door, secured with a heavy chain and huge padlock. Rising, she fiddled with the locking mechanism. You shouldn't do that. They'll be angry if you do. You should get out of here." She looked at the scared man on the floor. "I'm not leaving without the two of you. We're going to get out of here." William shook his head, one fist coming up to stifle his sudden sobs. No one can help us. The wreck of our memories sinks forever." "Hey, that was pretty good. You are a poet," she said, trying to distract him. It's not mine." "Oh," she commented, biting her lip as she examined the lock more closely. You should really go. They'll be back soon. They'll be so cross if they find you here." She lifted the heavy lock, placing one hand over the locking handle and impressing her will upon it. "Release," she ordered softly, feeling a rush of pleasure as she felt the bolt give way. A shocked gasp came from William, and he tried to scramble away from her. Oh dear, they'll be so cross." "Look, I said I'm not leaving without you. Don't worry about who might show up. Spike and I can handle them. You don't know. You don't know how terrible they are." She gave him a confident smile as she pulled free the chain and dropped it and the padlock to the floor with a heavy clang. "Yeah, well, I've faced quite a few big bads in my day, and I've come out okay. It'll be all right, William. We just have to get Spike and get out of here. Stay here, I'll be right out." Without further hesitation, she pulled open the cell door and stepped in. "Spike?" she called, holding her little light high to illuminate the room. "You shouldn't be here, Red," came a raspy voice from the shadows. Turning towards the source of the sound, she found Spike naked from the waist up and hanging from a set of chains fastened to the roof of the cell. His arms were stretched high above his head, and he was dangling just enough so that only his toes touched the ground. He was laced with whip and burn marks, his skin hanging in ribbons in places and streaked with blood. "Well, at least you see me and know who I am. That's an improvement," she replied, going to him. She raised one hand and concentrated on the manacles. "Release," she ordered, and the restraints unlocked under her command, causing Spike to collapse to the hard floor with a groan. "Can you walk?" she asked, crouching down beside him. "Ah, don't be Florence Bloody Nightingale now, Wicca," Spike groused, slowly getting his legs underneath him. As he picked himself up into a kneeling position, Willow got a good look at what was left of his back and winced. "Goddess, Spike. Jeez." And gave her a withering glance. "Yeah, well, what were you expecting? It's a bloody torture chamber, and there's nothing my maker and her sodden daddy like better than a decent spot of torture." "Angelus and Drusilla did this to you?" she asked, helping him as best she could. He looked at her through one swollen eye. "Who else beats me like this?" He dropped his gaze. "Except for Buffy. I haven't the guts to conjure her into this nightmare. Bloody spineless wanker I am." "Spike, listen. Glory has Dawn, and you're the only one who knows where she is. You have to come back with me. You have to take us to where Glory has Dawn." Still on his knees, Spike hung his head. "Won't do any good, Red. I can't change it. Been trying with all my might, but nothing seems to make a difference. Everything I knew, everything I did to try and change what happened, all just blew up in my face. It's useless." "No, it isn't. Look, I saw what happened. Took a little trip down your musical door memory lane. I know how much you changed. And maybe you didn't change everything you wanted to, or maybe some things couldn't be changed, but you can't give up now. Regardless, you have to go there to help Buffy fight the final fight against Glory." "What?" "And watch her die again. Watch her jump off that bloody tower because I was too much of a failure. Because I couldn't do one damn thing right." He snapped back, breathing heavily. "It was all the same to you. I'll just stay here." "You can't stay here, Spike. When you kept Tara from going out to be brain-sucked, we lost our guide to Glory. Without you to show us the way, Glory will perform the ritual, Dawn and Buffy will die, and so will the rest of the world with it," she argued. He looked away, defeated. I can't, Wills. So you're just going to let Dawn and Buffy and the whole world die because things didn't go the way you thought they would? Well, who do we have here?" came a sneering voice that Willow knew all too well. She looked to the doorway and saw Angelus and Drusilla standing there. Angelus held a whimpering William by the back of his neck. I told you they'd be cross," William choked. "Repulso," Willow commanded, thrusting her hand. A wave of red energy burst forth from her palm, knocking the two vampires backwards and out of the cell. The shock made Angelus release, and William and the man fell to the floor. "Wow, Red," Spike breathed appreciatively. "Best defense is a good offense. Come on," she answered, bending down to take his arm and urge him to his feet. He rose, staggering, but went with her, leaning heavily on her for support. "Come on, Ponce, get a move on," Spike groused to William as they approached the cell door. Still whimpering, William did as ordered and got to his feet. "Bloody hell, I was such a wanker. Why couldn't I have asked for Bruce Lee's soul?" Willow managed to chuckle as she helped Spike out of the cell. Crossing the threshold, she saw that Angelus was still down, but she couldn't see Drusilla. She didn't have the time to wonder where Spike's sire had disappeared to, because Drusilla grabbed her and yanked her backwards. "Nasty girlie! Spoil all our fun! Naughty!" the vampiress scolded, knocking Spike from her grasp and sending the injured vampire slamming to the floor. Willow growled and grabbed Drusilla's hands, pulling them from her hair. "Repulso!" she yelled, sending the insane vampire flying across the floor. "Revile," she then ordered, raising her hand to grab the stake that materialized in her palm. Drew screamed a challenge to her and rushed at her, but she was ready. She ducked and spun as the vampire lunged, coming up behind her and swinging the stake home. Drew exploded into dust with a shriek. "Wow, I did it!" Willow mused, surprised and pleased with herself. "I'll kill you for that, bitch," Angelus threatened, grabbing William and preparing to bite him. Scrambling, she looked for an opportunity and a way to save the terrified man. But then a shadow rose up behind Angelus, and she saw Spike swing a sword he'd taken from the wall of weapons Drusilla had tossed him into. The sword arced through the air and neatly lopped off Angelus's head, making the body disintegrate into a pile of dust. Dropping the sword with a heavy thump, Spike stared at what was left of his tormentor. "He might be a Ponce, but he's my Ponce," he snarked. William shakily got up, brushing off his dusty clothes. Thank you." "Spike, are you ready to go?" Willow asked. "I'm half afraid to tell you no, Red. You might send me flying through a wall. I'll ram that pretty stink through my chest," he answered, still standing on shaky legs. Willow looked at the stake in her hand, then dropped it. "Buffy and Dawn need us. I came all the way here to find you. If you're coming with me, we have to leave now." Spike placed a hand on William's shoulder, and the two of them rose to their full height, each silently supporting each other. "We are with you, Miss Willow," William replied. Spike sighed. "Yeah. Lead on, Wicca. We'll be right with you." Willow flashed him a brilliant smile and led the way out of the dungeon. The two of them followed slowly behind. Jack.
Ian, this felt like a... we said we were going to do something light, and I think at this point we've been recording for like 3 hours, 3.5 hours.
Well, I mean, with the reaction, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. You know what it is? I bet if we record every week, we don't have this glut of, serious stuff that we have to. We don't have to open a vein if we record on a weekly basis. Just like, you know what? I was feeling down this week, and I watched Conan or whatever.
Right. So you're saying that we should try to stick to a weekly schedule?
Yeah, we should really try and.
Think about it, man. Like, we're almost halfway through May, and we still haven't gotten it. Like, wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But,
well.
It's been fun, though. I've really enjoyed this one, though.
Yeah, this is a good time. So what are you up to this week?
Well, I'm still dealing with all this kidney stone nonsense. At some point, I don't know exactly when, but I'm going to have to go back into hospital for another operation. That's just to remove the stent that was put in. I mentioned that earlier. They can't stay in for forever because it's a foreign body, a foreign object in your body. So yeah, that's gotta come out. But other than that, just take it easy and focusing on healing and getting better. But I'll be doing all the regular stuff. Editing for Chipperish, I'm back doing that. I didn't do the last one because I was sick. And yeah, like whatever stuff you and I would get into, we still got a backlog of Patreon readings.
There are the readings.
Get to.
Yeah, that's been on my to-do list for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Also, I want to get back into working out again. I was doing well with that a while ago, but I just haven't been able to get back into it. But the problem is when my kidneys are flaring up like this, physical exertion can make it worse. Or
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. I'll play some Beat Saber and see how I feel after that.
Yeah, a couple songs on Medium.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, but what are you up to, my friend?
I am, we didn't talk about it much today, but I have been horrendously addicted to MLB The Show.
You have.
The Xbox Game Pass. It's been ugly. It's been ugly.
But a lot of fun, it sounds like.
It's funny, the Diamond Dynasty, I've hit a threshold with those games that I do with any games that are based on collecting.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in Assassin's Creed. Once I have all the upgrades, that's when I get bored, and I know I need to mainline it to the end of the game, or I'm just gonna stop and play something else. And the game, the Diamond Dynasty mode is predicated on opening packs, and you get a bronze center fielder, and you get a silver pitcher, and maybe you get really lucky and get a diamond. And so you build a team out of that, and you play games with the team, and so you struggle, and it's tough, and then you get more packs, and you get more. All of my players are diamonds now, and I'm like, well,
you're basically like maxed out. Or your,
I'm not gonna play some teenager online with this team. I don't care what he wants to do with my mother. Like, so what do I care? I'm not looking for that kind of experience.
Right. I'm kind of the same, but with like loot-based games like Diablo. I'm so excited for the Diablo 2 remaster. My God.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, like getting better gear and like getting better and better stuff. That hooks me in so badly.
Yeah. Well, you get to the point where it's like, yeah, but this guy's more diamond. It's like, I don't care. I have the.
I'm all about my own experience. I don't care about anyone else's.
Yeah. So I'm looking for whatever my next game is going to be. I finished the Sony Spider-Man.
Oh yeah,
and it was
really
terrific.
Want to play that, but I don't have a PlayStation.
It was the Batman system.
It looks pretty,
but story was real good.
Okay.
Real good. It felt like kind of an epic Spider-Man mini-series.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. It probably... I mean, there's Into the Spider-Verse, there's Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi one, and then there's... there was this story.
Right.
In terms of my personal hierarchy of Spider-Man stories.
Into the Spider-Verse was incredible. That I wasn't expecting that to hit me the way it did. Like, my God.
That might be one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in the top 10 or 20.
Yeah. I sometimes find it hard to connect with something that's like completely animated. It's why I can't do anime, because I just can't. I can't connect to it, but that really got me.
Yeah. I don't know if there. Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite superhero movies. But anyway, there's that, and I'm working on Into the Woods.
I just love how the life drains from your eyes every time you say that.
Being grumpy, it takes a week it takes weeks to write a script.
Yeah,
and that episode,
you start writing and then you get pissed off because you have to. Yeah,
I don't like being negative. I don't want to. These people went and did something that they. Even if you're talking about the Ed Woods and the Tommy Wiseau's of the world, that's why I hate watching bad films, is because I still feel like at least they made this thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
unironically love Tommy Wiseau. Like, if I met the man, I would hug him. I love him.
Yeah.
He made something. I mean, I haven't made a movie.
I think that's why I will never actually consider myself a critic, because I do not enjoy the massacre. I don't
consider myself a critic. I consider myself a film nerd, but not a critic.
Yeah. Well, and Into the Woods, when I started writing the episode guide, people, I mean, it's a common question, is like, which episodes do you dread reviewing the most? And people think it's going to be The Body or Seeing Red or whatever it is. I'm pretty sure it's Into the Woods, because I find it so infuriating that it feels it's not that a character did something bad or it was campy or it didn't come together the way they had hoped it would, like Doomed or whatever.
Right.
It's that the writing to me feels actively broken.
Okay.
Do you ever see a movie or a television show like Star Trek Nemesis? Star Trek Nemesis. There are movies or television episodes that feel to me like whoever made that episode hadn't seen the series.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in Star Trek Nemesis, they find a copy of Data, the android, on a planet.
Okay.
And there's this. They have the
It
android.
wasn't lore?
Right? It wasn't lore.
Okay.
They just find some copy of Data on a planet someplace, and they're in engineering. I think it's Geordi turns. I watched Nemesis once because I found it so infuriating. And Geordi turns to Data and says, "Data, you have a brother." And I turned to my friend Chris, who I was seeing the movie with, and I was like, "Yeah, it's fucking lore. Did you see the show?" But it was as though they didn't. It was so. I mean, that's fandom. That's fandom life, right?
I had a similar experience with Terminator Genesis. I saw it once and made me angry, and I will never watch it again.
Yeah,
That shit on every movie that came before it. Even Terminator 3, which I don't really like. I mean...
Into the Woods undoes a bunch of what season 4 was actually about. Which I'll get into in the review. But I just hate... I'm a fan. This is fandom life. Like, these things are prize ponies to me. These things are precious, and I hate that sensation of grumping about it.
That'd make it even more difficult to write, because you don't want to sit in the frustration.
I want to pretend that the episode didn't exist.
Yeah.
Or I skip it, or I headcanon a reason for why Buffy is running to that helicopter at the end of the episode. She's running to tell Riley not to let the door hit him in the ass on the way out, or whatever it is.
I love it. I mean, you and I read elements of that episode very differently.
I know, but writing the script does not allow me my escapes from that. So I'm trying to write something that is respectful and thoughtful, but it still expresses my frustration, and it's a weird line to toe. But anyway, that's what I'm up to. It's coming along nicely.
Spider-Man.
We published a week ago last Friday the last video, which I thought turned out pretty well. And usually it's tough for me to get back to the next script, but last week I was cranking along and did a bunch of writing about it today. So I'm not going to prognosticate when it's going to be done.
No, don't do that.
It will be wrong, whatever I say, but it is in process.
We don't have much luck with doing that,
No.
so let's just not.
No. Unless it's done, and I can say, it'll be out tomorrow, because it's done, and I know.
Yeah, because...
All right, friends. Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate your time.
Take care of yourselves. And,
I don't think either of us love being as much of a downer as we were, but I don't. I also don't. Not sure that we were. It's just
also we didn't plan it, but it was still real. It's the stuff we've been going through. So,
and in some ways, like, this is just about. This isn't about succumbing to these tough things. It's about the ways in which we have been grappling with and overcoming them. And so hopefully what that means is that it's less downy and more about, surviving and trying to be strong.
It's catharsis for us, and we hope that you can get something from it too.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
But we promise more jokes the next time. Jack will write them.
Yes. we will specifically write jokes.
All right, we'll see you then. Thank you so much.
Thanks, friends.